Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Kathleen Campbell, and the goal of my channel is to bring transparency to the rapidly changing curriculums here in Rutherford, New Jersey school systems. These changes are, in fact, across the state of New Jersey. Many were mandated by Governor Murphy as early as 2019, and as of more recently, June of 2020. So I was not aware of many of these changes until this past summer. And ever since I've learned, I, of course, have been questioning our district to try to get answers, to try to understand how these new changes will be implemented in the classrooms. And I can assure you that getting teeth pulled is a lot easier than getting those answers. So we're going to begin with the October 25th Board of Education meeting that I spoke at in regards to my concerns about social emotional learning. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to share my screen with you all, because what I want to do is I want to play one sentence of my statement, and you'll see why as we move forward. So let me just go ahead and hit play here.
Karen advised that you, the board, approved SEL in August as a district goal and accepted a sizable federal grant for social emotional support and mental health.
Okay. First off, if you are unfamiliar with my district, Carry-On is Principal Joan Carry-On. And I want to correct that statement because the way that I read it actually sounds as if Principal Carry-On alerted me to the grant. I don't want to give credit where it's not due. She did not alert me to that. I found it in my own research. So that was misspoken by myself. So here I said that we accepted a grant for social, emotional support and mental health. And that is true. That is correct. Now, I can only assume that Superintendent Jack Hurley heard me say in his mind that we accepted a grant for social emotional learning, which is why at 1 hour, 13 minutes in about 26 seconds, he says that social emotional learning is not connected to the grant. It's totally different. His words, not mine. So what I want to do is play for you his response to me regarding my statement. And if you want to listen to the full statement that I make, I will include a link to that Board of Ed meeting in the description below. I will alert you to what time I start, and you are welcome to listen and make your own assessment. So here's Superintendent Hurley's response, which I want to touch upon after he's done speaking.
It's been with us for at least 5 or 6 years. It is not connected to any of the grant money. Those were things done to support mental health. The one connection is CASEL, which we're able to bring professional development to go with the folks from Yale who originated this concept 30 plus years ago to get a little more in-depth training for our staff. So I just want to.
So right there, he says it's not connected. Social emotional learning is not connected to any of the grant money. That it was for emotional support, which that is factual. It is connected, to emotional support. And you could see that right here. Sorry, let me just go back up. This is the New Jersey Department of Education Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief ESSER II Fund Allocations Report. And when you go to Rutherford, New Jersey, you will see right here, this is the allocation amount, $675,000. 43,346 went to learning acceleration. And I'm going to get into what learning acceleration is a little bit later in this video. And then $45,000 right here went to mental health support and services, which that is a sizable amount, as I said in my statement, that we received for mental health support and services. So here we go. Okay, so we're done with the video portion. Now, I want to show you a roundtable that was presented by Superintendent Hurley just 3 days after this Board of Education meeting. And you see here, he's discussing the funding that we receive from the federal government through these grants. Here he mentions the learning acceleration dollar amount, which I just pointed out to you in the previous file. And then oddly enough, the $45,000 doesn't have a title next to it, but that is for the emotional support. I'm not quite certain why they wouldn't fill that in and explain that that's what that's broken down to, but they did not on this particular slide. I was not present at this meeting. My son was not feeling well that day, and I was not going to leave him to attend this. So I really can't speak to what was actually said in the meeting, and I don't believe that there's a recording of it. So I have no way to go back and confirm what was discussed in terms of this. But what I can show you is down here. Ramapo for children, this portion is for the emotional support. These support staff that is mentioned here, that is the school nurses, the school guidance counselors, the psychologists. So this is very specific for children who need additional emotional support. Here is Care Plus. This is also a part of the emotional support, $45,000. We now have a clinician on school grounds, which is wonderful. We are lucky that we can have such a great tool, especially when it comes to our children, their mental health, their mental well-being. I applaud this. But then here you go to CASEL, which Superintendent Hurley says the connection is CASEL. So yes, we receive funding from the federal government. He says that we do, even though 2 times prior he says, no, it's not connected, but then he changes his story a bit. So let's go through this slide. CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Now they are basically, they're the main company that created social and emotional learning. It was titled under different branding prior to growth mindset, character development, I think emotional development. I'm not positive about that third one, but they are the main company, and we are utilizing their competencies in our classes. We're utilizing them to teach our children about self-awareness, self-management, setting goals, etc. The point is, here we have understand CASEL's theory of action for systemic SEL implementation. Now, I wasn't quite certain what that meant, so I Googled it. And of course, right here, the first definition that comes up is provided to us by CASEL. So I went directly to their website. And right here, nice and big for us, is how we learn about what systemic implementation is. A systemic approach ensures that SEL is woven into all students' educational experiences. More than a single lesson or activity, SEL is integrated across key settings where students live and learn: classrooms, schools, homes, and communities. So I want to pause right there. That is telling us that this is, systemic implementation is throughout our curriculum, which is something that our Board of Ed approved. It also aligns school, district, and state policies, resources, and actions to support SEL, which again was approved by our Board of Education to implement social emotional learning throughout our curriculum as part of the COVID pandemic resulting from social isolation and anxiety, Federal policies play a role in creating ripe conditions for supportive environments and rich learning experiences. Sure they do, because the federal government supports social emotional learning, and they are also providing funding for social emotional learning in our classrooms. Now let's go back. Develop and apply strategies to promote SEL for students and to strengthen adult SEL competencies and capacity. Now, the way that I read that is we're going to develop these strategies and we're going to come up with a game plan onto how to embed it in our curriculum, and we're going to actually carry that out. So the federal government, again, as per Jack Hurley's Roundtable PowerPoint, is funding social emotional learning in our schools. Assess our current SEL implementation resources and needs. I want to see that. So I have an Oprah request that I wrote up yesterday, and I will be submitting shortly to Joseph Kelly. So hopefully Monday morning, he'll be able to look into that and get that information to me rather quickly. Develop goals for implementing and sustaining school-wide SEL. So again, right here, we are seeing the federal government is in fact funding not only the emotional support for our district, but they are also funding the utilization and the implementation of social emotional learning in our classrooms for all of our children. It says right here, grades K through 12. It's right in front of you. It is 100% being funded by the government. Jack Hurley said in his statement that it was just for professional development, but still professional development is how the teachers learn how to implement it. So it's one and the same, at least from my perception, it is one and the same. So, sorry, let me just go back real quick. So what you see here again, learning accelerations, and like I said, the 45,000 was the emotional support. So I went to see what learning acceleration was. And in this little diagram that they have, you could see right here, provide conditions for teaching and learning that will foster social and emotional well-being of students, families, and educators. And in fact, that is the #1 principle of learning acceleration. The #1 principle of learning acceleration is to provide conditions for teaching and learning that will foster social and emotional well-being of students, families, and educators. So I went back to also look a little further, excuse me, wrong slide. I went back to see exactly what learning acceleration is. You'll see here in the New Jersey Department of Education, it's a great resource. I will include the links below in the biography, or excuse me, in the description. Same thing. The New Jersey Department of Education has also designated $75 million from the state set aside to establish the Learning Acceleration Grant to support research-based academic enrichment activities. If you listen to the 2 Board of Education meetings that I spoke at, I believe in both of them, Jack Hurley mentions that social emotional learning is research-based, evidence-based science, and that it's a positive thing and it's great to implement in our school systems. So when you hear him say that, and then you come back and you read what learning acceleration is, it sounds to me like one and the same. So social emotional learning would in fact fall underneath learning acceleration. So part of the federal government grant goes to learning acceleration, which goes to social emotional learning. I mean, it seems pretty simple to me. Here we go. Learning acceleration grants may also be used for activities that support the broader learning ecosystem, such as evidence-based strategies, to cultivate a growth mindset in students, professional learning for educators, in use of universal screening assessments, and in how to use extended day instructional time to effectively scaffold students' learning and education and training programs for parents and caregivers. So again, right there, it is telling us that federal funding is going to social emotional learning in our classrooms. That is how I'm interpreting it. If I am incorrect, somebody very well may be able to go ahead and tell me where I am wrong in my understanding. If I am wrong, I want to know that I'm wrong. However, the way that I'm reading all of this is, yes, we are getting federal funding for social emotional learning. I don't know why we would want to deny that or to not let parents know that, especially if if social emotional learning is such a good thing and it's a positive thing. You know, the manipulation of the truth is concerning to me, and it makes my suspicions go up every time I face a scenario with the district that I believe untruths are being told. And right here is one of them. So what bothers me about this is many people were in that meeting, or anybody who listened to the video after, they just heard Jack Hurley say Kathleen Campbell was wrong in what she said, but I was right, and I just proved it. I was right in what I said about the sizable grant that was for the emotional support. I proved it. He even agreed with that. And then he continues to try to say, no, it's not part of the grants, but then he says, oh, but CASEL is. So which one is it? To me, it sounds like, yes, we are getting federal funding. And for whatever reason, the district doesn't want to admit it. Why that would be, I don't know. But if you're a parent who's just as interested in this as I am, you might need to go to a Board of Ed meeting and ask, because I'm obviously not getting all the answers. I will continue to push to get the answers. I will continue to make these videos and show what I've come across and what I've spotted. It's the only thing that I know to do at this rate. And I don't like feeling that I'm being lied to by my school district at all. If you want information and you want to be able to see what is actually taking place and you have the time, you could do what I did and you can dive into all these different websites and get the information for yourself. It's there. You just have to put the time into it like I've done. Now, the amount of hours that it took me to put this together is probably a lot more than one would expect, but I've kind of simplified everything. I'll give you all the links so that you could go in and you could do your own research and you can come to your own educated conclusions. These are my feelings. This is my perspective. And this is how I'm interpreting things. And if I'm interpreting it incorrectly, hopefully somebody will tell me where I'm wrong and I will correct that in another video. I do not want fallacies put out. I'm not trying to make up lies to get people to agree with me or for my agenda. My agenda is to protect my child and to have a say in his education. And if there are topics that I don't feel that my child is mature enough for, I feel that I have the right to have a say in that. And the fact that the school district cannot tell us how they're implementing a lot of these new curricula changes is very concerning to me, and it's a big red flag. There are no standards that they have to follow for some of this stuff, like the diversity, equity, inclusion. There's no standards. So it's almost like they have carte blanche on what they teach as long as it hits those core topics. And that's a problem for me because I want to be able to see what my son is being educated on. If you look up the curriculum for math, for English, for social studies, you see the exact standard that it applies to. When it comes to these newly incorporated mandated curriculums, you can't see that. And for me, as a parent who's involved in her son's life, his education, his upbringing, who has model behavior for her son to follow, to learn from in terms of the kindness, the empathy, how to treat other people, how to be respectful, how to just have manners in general. I'm involved in all of that. So yes, I want to see exactly what you're going to put in front of my child, and the district can't do it. So with that, I thank you for listening today. Please come to your own conclusions. If you have questions that pertain specifically to what I talked about today, please ask. I'm not answering personal questions. Why people think that they get to have an answer to some of the things that are personal to me, I don't know. It's an overreach. I won't reply. The reason that I do certain things is no one's business except for my own, for my family's business, and that's it. It's only for me, my family, and that's it. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you don't need to listen to what I say. You choose to come here and listen to what I'm saying. So you could consciously decide to just skip the video as well. With that, thank you for listening. I hope that I was able to bring a little light to you. I just hope everybody can realize how easy it is for this district or any school district to manipulate the truth and to bend it in their favor in light of everybody. When everybody's watching, that's what they want to do. They want to bend it to their favor, and they're able to do so because most people don't do the research that I do. So hopefully I'm helping. With that, thank you again for tuning in. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and I will be making more videos. So if you have anything that you would like for me to discuss, by all means, please let me know what that is, and I'll be happy to look into it and see if I can get some information for you. But stay warm, take care, be well, and I will speak with you all soon. Bye-bye.